If you were going to describe to me an RPG, there's already one of two settings I immediately associate with what you might say. It probably takes place either really far in the past or really far in the future. And to be fair, there's nothing wrong with that. Those settings are often used because they are successful. But there's one place that I find personally the most satisfying. The place that is in the direct middle of those two extremes. The here and now. The modern day. Yakuza Like a Dragon was a refreshing game to play. It's a new take on a series I already dearly love. While nearly every other Yakuza are action beat-em-ups with lighter RPG elements, Like a Dragon instead goes full turn-based RPG, while reincorporating Yakuza concepts to fit within the identity of the series. The game uses all the staples of a classic RPG. There's HP, MP, spells, equipment, dungeons, boss fights, and more. It doesn't try to rename these terms, ergo hiding the kind of game it is. In fact, this game is very proud that it is a turn-based RPG, and it lets that fact be well known. But because Yakuza takes place in the real world, it also needs to consider how to interpret those classic ideas in a way that makes sense given real-world limitations. The result ends up being something mechanically derivative, but aesthetically creative. Weapons are things like baseball bats, umbrellas, police batons, and handbags. The different spells are perhaps a bit far-fetched logically, but still feel like they might be able to happen within an everyday encounter. The job system is a literal job system, handled through a freelance agency. A mimic is just some degenerate locked up in a safe hoping to surprise someone. And while these parallels can be interpreted as a satirical take on the genre, I felt it was genuinely earnest in the way it portrays those elements. The justification for why this game uses such a radically different combat system is because the main character is someone with an overactive imagination, and because of his time playing games like Dragon Quest, wants to live his life as a hero. And a hero gives others the chance to fight back. It's not something unique to Yakuza though. There are many RPGs that take place in the modern day, or at least reasonably close to it, the Earthbound series being the most famous example of this. Although there's tons of things in Earthbound that don't make sense outside of context. While Earthbound Beginnings allegedly takes place in the United States, the next two games are in fictional locations meant to parody the US while not explicitly being them. There's also the matter that Earthbound is pretty freaking weird. Enemy encounters could be against crows, dogs, or other people. But then there are enemies like this. What the heck is this? This isn't something I might see when I walk downtown. At this point, it's a fantasy based on reality. Like Final Fantasy XV, a game where that is literally the tagline. Final Fantasy XV is definitely the most contemporary game in the Final Fantasy series. People have the kind of technology we have. They act like the kind of people we know. But maybe they just have to deal with unholy demons if they stay out drinking a little too long one night. This is not to disparage Earthbound or Final Fantasy XV. It's just not what I would truly consider as an RPG that is set within the relative modern world. Persona is probably the next closest example that takes place within the real world. I love these games dearly, with some of the entries in this series being among my favorites of all time. Although sometimes I don't immediately put those pieces together. Even if they take place in real-life settings, or at least well-realized fictional cities, they're all still fantastical in nature, where battles take place in an alternate reality reflecting abstract concepts of the human psyche. For a similar reason, I don't really consider Parasite Eve to take place in reality, because of the supernatural horror that occurs. In a sense, that's also why I think Yakuza is the most successful attempt I've seen tackle this idea so far. It adapts almost every familiar RPG concept into a setting that is relatively familiar. These are real people. They don't have legendary dragon bloodlines or ancient weapons. They don't take on demonic creatures having dwelled for a millennia. At most, they fight something like a construction crane, which doesn't actually make sense, but it still kind of makes sense, you know? It's for that reason I want to see more RPGs try to utilize this type of contemporary setting. Even if using such a time frame isn't necessarily breaking new ground, it's the interpretation of those typical cliches that make it so special. What different ways can people come up with to answer those same questions? I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential that is just waiting to be unearthed. It's a challenge that's not easily tackled, but one I'm always excited to see explored in any fashion.